Here we are again with another video. We've been getting a lot of questions specifically about lighting and how to make lighting a little more realistic in Revit. So we're going to cover a couple of things here. And the first thing is I made just a little room with a desk in it so we could do a couple of renderings, which I've already pre-rendered. Just so we don't have to waste time on that. And so let's talk a little bit about what makes a light source real and what are some of the settings. Well, the first things first is I added just a studio light, which is kind of a free floating light in here because it's easier to work with for me. But let's talk about the families a little bit more. What I've got open in the background here is just a pendant light. Inside of these files, and if I kind of spin it around here, oops, come on, if I spin it around here, we will be able to see that you see this light source in here. The yellow light source is actually kind of inside this frosted glass, which in some families you'll notice the light source is actually outside of the light. And in fact, I would almost recommend that sometimes because we are now, and again, this may be worthwhile, you're kind of at the mercy of whatever material gets applied to that covering. Now the light source themselves, in most families, if we go click on it and go look at the light source definition, they're generic. Okay, the studio light is nothing more than a point with a sphere distribution. This one happens to be a point with a hemispheric distribution. You also have spot, and then you also have this thing called photometric web, which is one of the things you're going to want to do if you want a more realistic light. Okay, so let's close this one down and let's go take a look at what we've done here. So for this first view, and I'll go to the actual rendered view so you can see which one that is. So it's going to be a rendering of this. So I took the generic studio light and just went ahead and did a rendering on medium. Saved it to the project. And you can see it's all right. The color is really yellow. Most people don't like that. So the first things first is let's talk about getting the right quality of light in there. So I'm going to click this family and we're going to go to type properties, and if we scroll down here you'll notice you can set light loss factor, intensity of the light. You can also set initial color, and what I've actually already done here is I've set it to 6500K. That first rendering was actually at 4000K, which is degrees Kelvin for those of you in the know. You can see that the picture is much cleaner, much lighter. The original one, like I said, was set to actually a metal halide light for that studio light, and you can see it's going to update itself. It's very yellow. And so I recommend probably using the reference colors. This one's a little warmer than the 6500, which is what I'm using for the majority of the other renderings. So that's the first thing you want to do. If we re-render that, the Studio Light D65, you'll see that again it's a much cleaner, whiter light, probably better for presentation. Again, unless you're doing some mood lighting kind of things and you know your degrees Kelvin or you've done the research on the internet, then you know kind of what lighting quality you're looking for. But there you go, that's how to go change it. So the next thing is, okay, well, how do I actually make this start looking like the light source it really is? And the big thing here is the IES files. You can literally just go to Google. We'll skip that. You can literally just go to Google and do a search for IES files. It's that simple. Okay, you can see a couple places that I've been to. We've got Eclipse lighting. You can go to Philips for their actual luminaire, the bulbs. And I downloaded a couple from this sitelighting.com. So you can take it. There's all their different lighting things. And I happened to download some bollards. We go look at that and go look at the bollards. The one that I'm using, I think, is actually from this rectangular bollard down here. Okay, so I just looked at the product number, the BS700, and went and found it in that zip file that I downloaded. Okay, easy as that. I unzipped it to a directory. So how do you actually get that file in there? Well, if we go back, and we do have to do a little bit of family editing first, which I cannot do from this view. So we'll just switch back to our other 3D view. So I'll select that, edit the family, and then back here, I will select the light source, go to the definition, and tell it I want to use a photometric web. That simple. From there, you can control everything from the project if you want to. And what happens when you select that and you go look at the family types here, you will notice that now it just assigns a generic photometric web file. And those guys are just located in an IES folder under Program Data, Autodesk RAC 2012 IES. Okay, but if you really want the ones out there from manufacturers, you got to go and download them. Now again, I can add it here, but these are type properties that we can control from the project. So it's as simple as that. You can load that guy back into the project, and you're ready to rock and roll. All right. So now that I'm here, then I can come in and start going to Edit Type, scroll down, and there it is. So I can apply that BS 7000 or 700 file to it, and basically I just stuck it in my downloads folder. So there it is. So this is the kind of stuff you're going to get when you do a download. You're going to divide it into folders. Inside of each folder are going to be different IES files. Easy as that. Just pick the one you want. Now I did a couple different renderings with a couple different IES files. I did one that was the ideal spotlight that I did with Revit's own internal IES file called Ideal Spotlight. And you can definitely see it's a spotlight. I also did a light bollard, which is one of those IES files I downloaded. And you'll notice, even though I don't have any type of physical thing blocking the light, it's still flowing out as it would be flowing from that bollard. And that's what the whole photometric web is for. And again, you can get photometric webs that are based on actual lamps or light bulbs, but you can also get photometric webs that are from the manufacturers based on their product, so that it will look appropriate if you're doing a rendering. So between those two things, setting the degrees Kelvin for the lighting source, and secondly, doing the setting the IES file, you're getting something much more realistic. The other thing that people tend to complain about is that lighting is too dim. Well, like I said earlier, you can certainly go in and adjust in the type properties. You can adjust the light loss factor. You can make it dimmer or brighter. There's an advanced function, which is wow. Unless you know a lot about lighting, then you might as well just go with the simple methodology, which is I want it dimmer or brighter. It's that simple. The other way to do this is if you know, again, about lumens and wattage and things like that, you can adjust it from there, and you can set your luminous flux, which sounds a lot more exciting than it really is, which is the lumen output. Or you can adjust the luminous intensity or however you want to adjust it. Efficacy is the one thing that I tend to adjust up and down. You'll notice is basically this multiplying by that equals a luminous flux. So there you go. That's one of the things I do mess around with. The other way to control some of this stuff is through the rendering dialog itself. And so don't forget about that. When you do renderings, you kind of got to know what you're rendering. So I've got two of them where I did the bollard. Okay, and that was just with the artificial light turned on for interiors. And then I did sun and artificial as well. You can notice that that one is a lot darker up top. So what those rendering settings are doing, and I'll pull up the dialog here, is that if you do interior, artificial only versus sun and artificial, Revit is playing with the ambient lighting for you. It's making its own decisions. So you then have to be a little bit on the professional side here to be able to say, okay, no, I really want the ambient lighting pushed up a little bit or whatever. So I did another rendering with the metal halide turned back on, just so I could show you. You can also adjust exposure here with the exposure controls once it's rendered before you save it, for the most part. You can make it lighter or darker. And again, these are very, very sensitive sliders. You'll notice I didn't slide it all that much, and it got really, really bright. You can also adjust highlights, midtones, and shadows individually, and you can also change the white point as well, or I can make it a little cooler, hit apply, warmer, or you can make it really, really cool and make it very, very blue. You can also change the saturation on things. If you screw up completely, just hit reset to default, hit apply again, and you can start all over. Once you're done, I did save to project just for this demo. I would always recommend exporting to a TIFF file first, and then using some other type of product like Photoshop or whatever. I also like GIMP, which is a freebie, to then change it to a JPEG or something like that. So there you go. There's an overview of lighting. Remember, it's all contained back here in the family, so you want to edit the family, go change it to an IES file with the light source, and then at that point you can adjust everything else from the project, at least on a basic side. We can go much deeper with this. Alright, and then there are some other rendering settings that also affect certain things, but that'll be a different video for a different time.